Sunday night. We're ready for pickled pike part 2. First thing I did is I washed a bunch of jars and set them all to the side. I got out all my ingredients for the pickling, which you're going to need white vinegar, pickling spice. This container right here will do us perfect, and some sugar. So to start out with, we're going to need 12 cups of white vinegar. If you're making less, you know, adjust the recipe accordingly. I've played with this for the last couple years, and that's 4 cups right there. And I found that I don't like it as sweet as the recipe called for that I originally started with. So I cut down the sugar, or I add a little more vinegar if I need more fluid. Just play that game with it. But this is the basics. Okay, right there we've got in 8 cups so far. Get our next bottle. I know 8 cups will fill 7 pint jars after you get them filled with the onions and the pike. I know that 8 cups of vinegar will do that, but this time I've got a big batch, so I'm changing up my recipe a bit more, so I have more vinegar. So that's 12 cups of vinegar, 5 cups of sugar, and again, the original recipe I tried called for a lot more, and I've found that it's a little bit too much. There's 1, 2. I like it sweet, but that's like a bread and butter kind of pickling, but not too sweet. So if it's not exact, it's just one of those to taste things. I've also heard of people using some white wine, and I've tried that, and I just don't see that it makes a difference at all. I think it's all in your head, because the amount of sugar and vinegar you got in there already with pickling spice, how can you taste a little bit of white wine? I just don't notice it. This is the pickling spice I use, and I'm going to use a whole one. Normally I'll use a 1/3 cup for 8 cups of vinegar, but since I've got 12 cups of vinegar, it just leaves me a little bit left over. I'm going to use this whole thing. So 1 container of that. It's easiest to pick it up at the store, pickling spice by McCormick's, and that's it. Our pickling spice has begun. We're going to fire that up and bring it to a boil. While we're waiting for this to come to a boil, I'm going to stir it for a bit, and I'm going to start slicing onions. Okay, we're still bringing this pickling juice to a boil. Got some onions peeled with the outer shells off, and I think a good rule of thumb to go by is you've got a jar, you're going to use about one onion per jar. You know, these ones, once you get them diced up, you'll have more air space in there, of course, so it's not going to take the whole onion, but I've got some bigger jars as well, so naturally a 1.5 pint jar here is going to take the leftover. So if you just figure about an onion a jar, if you have all pint jars, then knock out one of the onions. I'm sure you can figure out what to do with an extra onion. But that's just how I kind of do it, to keep track of how many onions I need to cut up for how many jars I've got going on. Okay, we've got a bowl of onions cut up. Our pickled juice is boiling. Let it go for about another minute, and then I'll shut it down, and I take it out on the porch and let it cool. We've got our onions sliced. I got the pickled pike out. Pickling juice is out on the porch cooling off, and now we need to strain and rinse all the pike. This has been 5 days, stirring it once a day, sitting in our mixture that we started with in the previous video. You can see how white that is. Nice and chunky. And it is all firmed up really nice. I dump most of this out, most of the juice out. Colander's down here to catch the fish. It comes out. Okay, look at that. It's nice and firm. Same texture as a cooked piece of chicken. Just cold water. Okay, at this point we've got our pike all rinsed off, drained. We've got our onions cut. Our pickle juice is outside on the porch cooling off. And what we're going to do is start filling a jar. I'll show you how to do one and we'll go from there. I will fill these and then put them in the refrigerator. Cover them with a piece of plastic, put them in the refrigerator until that pickle juice is cold if it doesn't line up all at the right time. But this is all we're looking at doing. See, I've got some already packed. Just take you some onion, drop it in there, a little bit of fish, some more onion, a little bit more fish, some more onion. A little more fish, some more onion. We'll do it one more time. Your pickling juice is done. I spooned some of it out, put it in this. It's just easier to pour. Got one of the jars out. Just pour it right in there. You can see the seasonings falling down. Put it in enough so that it covers the fish. A little bit of it floating up there. Got my lids. Over here in some warm water. Already wiped the rim of the jars. That's it. Put that in the fridge. Let it sit about 3 days. You'll notice that the pickled pike and the onions will all float up. Tomorrow you'll see it's all floated up and there's a space at the bottom. And just wait, you'll see it start to sink. And when it sinks, then you're good to go. You can eat it the next day. It's just the more time you give it, the more it's going to collect all the flavor from the pickling juice and everything. Soak it up. So I normally wait about 3 days and then start digging into it. That's it. Pickled pike. If you like it, let me know.